actually been addressed.
All right, so that was the management of Lupin detailing their numbers, indicating that there is some sort of price pressure in the US as well. We have Prakash Diwan with us. Prakash, Ekta spoke about the pharmaceutical numbers. Just wanted your thoughts on between Lupin and Auro. What do you make of the numbers and what would you back right now?
Good afternoon, Manglam. So, distinctly the pharma cycle of belt tightening, pricing pressure, raw material costs, demand contraction is probably yet to kind of trough out. That's what Lupin numbers very clearly tell you, because they are more meaningful from a geographical footprint as well. Oro has its own share of problems and revival and all of that, which is kind of underway. So I won't read too much into these numbers to crystallize a narrative on that. But it's an avoid at this point in time. But what's interesting, Manglam, is out of the pack, if you see the kind of numbers that Cipla had, shared, the earnings which you saw in this quarter, the quarter gone by, that very clearly tells you that businesses which have invested in the last couple of years in newer geographies and newer products is what's kind of starting to reap benefits apart from just the US. So the non-US markets dominance is also kind of very positive for some of these names. And Cipla is, I think, one of the most resilient, though boring stocks to go for within the pharma space. So if the sector revives itself, there's no reason why this would not be a market performer along with that.
Okay, all right. Hi, Prakash. Good afternoon. Hope you're feeling better as well today. And, by this weekend, hopefully you'll be back to 100%. But Prakash, let's move away from this medical and pharma space. What about Dixon? Used to be a darling, right, of the market. Then the numbers started disappointing. The guidance kept getting revised. And, I've noticed in this result season, whether it was Piramal Pharma, whether it was Dixon, some of them spoke to media, spoke to press, as late as December. And you should have given some bit of a heads up that quarter 3 is going to be a washout. Then maybe the markets would be a little bit kinder to you. But both of them have seen a sharp correction. Your view on Dixon in particular, because that used to be a darling.
Good afternoon, Nigel. So, actually, thanks for checking on me. Yeah, things are much better. And I was hoping you ask about what's the plan for the weekend on the United Breweries numbers.
Yeah, Prakash, that's what I was wondering this morning when my colleague Surbi joined in and she said that it was a disappointing set of numbers. I was shell-shocked. I didn't know what to say. I said, we haven't done a bit, but I said, I'll keep it a little bit sober. Go ahead, Prakash.
Yeah, so on the question on Dixon particularly, so I think what's very evident is that the scale down that's happening from the demand side, and some of these companies had remember just recently enhanced capacities, augmented capacities, and all of that is yet not kind of paid for itself as yet. The cycle takes about 3.5 years for all these incremental capacities that they've added. And suddenly you have this specter of demand contraction, which is staring at your face, and it's a significant change. Now, with Turkey going down, there could be some benefits which will eventually accrue to some of these companies, because a lot of order routing which was happening through there might end up finding its way to India. But apart from that respite, which is again a short-term blip, I think there is stress in this sector, Nigel. So what's happening is all high flying, as you said, the darlings and the poster boys of the years or months have actually started losing out on P multiples, and that could particularly still continue. I think it's still reasonably high. It's towards a higher band in terms of what you would like to pay in a market like this. So stay away from some names. And if you're invested, at some point you should have the gumption to at least book out and probably wait for a better opportunity to buy.
Prakash, since you are expecting it, I am going to ask you about United Breweries and what you made of those numbers. Volume growth of just 4%. The street is clearly very disappointed. And also, if you could just give us this backstory about what's happening with the United Breweries business in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. There is some restructuring going on that's impacting their volumes and performance. What exactly is the issue over there, if you know?
Yeah, hi, Rima. So lots of questions rolled in one. Let me first specifically address what my interpretation of the numbers is. So, this whole thing of volume growth contracting for the market leader, fortunately, is not something which is percolating for the whole sector. So what's happening is UBL is consciously tried itself to morph into the Heineken way of life. From what it has been used to. And it's now evident in the kind of operations that they do. They're relying much more on technology. They're relying on just-in-time inventory for distribution. and all of that. And some of these states that we have, and you know that liquor is a very state-specific business of sorts. Every state has its own set of rules and policies and dynamics that come into picture. And what's worked for them in some of the larger markets like Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, which are beer intensive, hasn't probably worked for them in these other markets. And the restructuring that you're talking about is exactly to align it with the new management thought, which is there. So that's one thing. It'll take some time for it to reset and get right. The other thing that's very clearly evident in this space, and we saw the Sula numbers. We saw how Sula is reacting to the numbers today. This entire space, discretionary consumption, is probably going to be one pocket which will be far more resilient when you start seeing the impact of demand contraction. Now, the demand contraction in rural markets has been evident. It's still struggling. So that's exactly what you see in the FMCG names. But this is one segment which will continue to do well, irrespective whether it's a Friday or it's any other weekday. And especially newer markets like UP and all, I think are going to be extremely significant in terms of an impact for most beer companies, liquor companies, because it's been a great liquor hub of sorts because the distilleries being based there, the sugar mills being based there. But now it's kind of modernizing itself and industrializing itself. So those kind of vectors are what you need to look at. And one of companies that Nigel knows of, which I've spoken to about, Som Distilleries, they've actually done so well in Karnataka, which is the Kingfisher hub. And they're number 2 out there, as the press release mentioned yesterday. So there's so much happening in terms of dynamics that this is going to be an interesting space where UBL might end up being a loser in market share and on the stock price.
As of now, it's clearly a laggard today. Sula, on the other hand, is holding up in the green. It's up close to about 2.5%, but it slipped 5% from the day's high. It was a steady performance, 15% type of revenue and profit growth, but the company indicated that it's the premiumization which is driving the top line. The volume growth for the company was 8 to 10% lower than the value growth. That's Sula for you now at 409. Get into a short break. Prakash, do stay on. And we would like to thank our viewers once again. We've beaten all competition on Budget Day with an 89.8% viewership throughout the day. We've also emerged as the leader with an 88.2% viewership during the Finance Minister's speech. So a big thank you to our viewers for your continued trust and patronage and keeping it with CNBC-TV18. Indeed, it's a very proud moment for all of us here at the channel.